It's another crazy day in the world of Magic the Gathering. We've got another leak from the Final Fantasy set. We've got Wizards saying that the Spider-Man Universe Beyond set won't be coming to Arena, and Wizards is pulling a really scummy move with the newest secret lair.
Magic.
I am a wizard!
History.
I'm an old wizard!
The Magic Historian.
My bones hurt. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another jam-packed installment of Mega Magic News. Final Fantasy leaks, Spider-Man not coming to Arena, secret lair nuttiness, and an increase of prices on Magic Arena. So before we dive into that, we've got to talk about the catastrophic end of the world. Check it out. Doomlings contacted me about their brand new expansion, Legends of Enderis, and asked me if I wanted to give it a go. And the answer was an enthusiastic yes. They have introduced a whole bunch of fun new goodness into the game, including magic-wielding mythlings, big honking dinolings, beep boop techlings, and fuselings, which combine them all together. The craziest is treasures. This is equipment your Doomlings can use, and it lets you have special extra abilities, even letting you go first or deflect what your opponent is doing. This expansion comes with over 120 new cards to add to your collection, and once again, they are offering gold packs for those of you who like to foil up your collection. The Doomlings people have provided me a link that gets you 20% off if you use the code MyBonesHurt, and you can find that pinned in the top comment and in the video description. Let's start out the news by taking a look at the brand new Final Fantasy leak. Up on the screen, you're going to see Tifa Martial Artist. Now, there is a slight chance this might be a fake leak. There's no way to verify it for sure, but it does seem to be genuine. Now, this costs 1 white, 1 green, 1 red, and 1 for a 4/4 legendary human monk with melee, and whenever one or more creatures you control with power 7 or greater deal combat damage to a player, untap all creatures you control. If it's the first combat phase of your turn, there is an additional combat phase after this phase. So obviously the ability that she has dovetails very nicely with the Cloud action we've already seen, where he cares about 7 power as well. Also, it ties into the whole Final Fantasy VII vibe. The artwork checks out. One of the more questionable parts about this leak is the fact that this image is higher resolution than we normally see. But as far as I'm concerned, this does look to be the real deal, and it is pretty beefy. I mean, 4 mana for a 4/4 that comes with melee on top of possibly giving you an additional combat phase, and the only condition you have to meet is literally connecting with a creature with 7 power. It's not a different creature, so you could literally just cast a giant growth on Tifa to meet the conditions, let alone having other beef boys that are going to swing in. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a pretty sweet card. By the current standards of Magic, it doesn't even feel that overpowered. This will probably not be one of the more bonkers mythics in the set, but it does have the right kind of feel for Tifa. So it is interesting to see, and obviously we'll have more of the Final Fantasy stuff coming very soon. The spoiler season for that is set to commence on the 10th of next month. So about 2 weeks from now, we're going to start to see the floodgates open and get more Final Fantasy action going on. Moving on to the next bit of Universe Beyond news, and this is a weird one. Spider-Man will not be coming to MTG Arena. And you might be thinking, oh, that's because it's Universe Beyond. But take this point of information into account. Final Fantasy will be on Arena. Avatar: The Last Airbender will be on Arena. Spider-Man will not be on Arena. In its place will be something called Through the Omenpaths, which is a universe within set. This is such a strange situation to find ourselves in, where Spider-Man is being touted as what will most likely be the biggest universe beyond of the year, down to the point where Wizards has literally created welcome decks for Spider-Man, so people who are new to Magic and go down to game stores will be given Spider-Man starter decks for free. Whereas if you go on Arena, you literally won't be able to get Spider-Man, and instead you're going to have other basic reskins of Spider-Man cards in the actual Arena client. So for example, Spider-Man is a human spider mutant. So they're going to make a human spider mutant with the same casting cost, same abilities as Spider-Man, but it will be in the Magic universe. So it'll be maybe a knight riding a spider. It's unlikely that it will actually be some kind of spider humanoid, and it's not what people are joking, saying they'll just give it a name, Spider Guy, local neighborhood friend. It's not going to be along those lines. It's literally going to be done in the Magic world. So Through the Omenpaths will most likely lean heavily on Magic slush art. If you don't know what that is, Wizards of the Coast over the years had a bunch of art that wasn't appropriate to use in sets here and there, and so they would take them, set them aside, and wait for the appropriate time to bring them back, or in some cases, just dump them into a set where it didn't make any sense whatsoever. An example of that would be Markov Manor, where they took a bunch of the slush art they had left over from Capenna and went, we're going to put a bunch of 1920 gangsters and police into Ravnica, even though it doesn't make any sense. So that's what slush art is. So most likely the Through the Omenpaths set will not be some kind of cohesive world where we go, oh, we're visiting this plane and it's going to have this storyline. It's going to be a random mishmash of things, more along the lines of, let's say, for example, the Modern Horizon sets, which use a ton of slush art, but do it in an appropriate way because they're drawing from all kinds of different worlds. So as far as I'm concerned, this is actually one of the better uses of slush art. When they do things like they did with Markov Manor and they destroy the flavor of a world like Ravnica by inserting a detective agency into it when they already have a full Law and Order system, it doesn't make any sense. But when you're doing we're taking pieces from all over the multiverse, what this really means is a bunch of artwork that they might have tried to have to force into other sets and it wouldn't really feel right, can now all come from their individual points, and we might actually get some more bits of world building here and there, right? Like if you look at what happened with the Amonkhet part of Aetherdrift, because it was made up of 3 different worlds, the Amonkhet part of it was actually pretty compelling when you looked at the commander deck, and that's because they had a bunch of Amonkhet slush art that they didn't get to use originally, and they put it into a cohesive, feeling 100% like Amonkhet commander deck, which felt great and built on the actual lore of the plane, whereas the Amonkhet stuff we saw in Aetherdrift, the actual set, felt very out of place, where you had Hazaret wielding a spear that clearly has Nicol Bolas's iconography on it when they've already cast aside Nicol Bolas and he ruined their world, so there'd be no reason for Hazaret to be wielding that spear, and then behind her you have a bunch of Hot Wheels tracks. So that feels very confusing and off. So one of the advantages of the Through the Omenpath concept is we might actually get some genuine world building, and I never thought that the creation of universe beyond stuff might actually lead to some in-universe world building, but here we are. Wizards of the Coast hasn't made like a full-on announcement about it. They've just told us that it's going to be called Through the Omenpath. They've told us we won't be getting Spider-Man. Now, there are numbers of theories that are circulating around as to why this is happening, and it boils down mostly to licensing, right? Obviously, they license this stuff from Disney. Disney sets the terms. One of the things people have kicked around was maybe it was too expensive to get to license Spider-Man and actually make the digital versions as well, because with physical sets, they will print it for a certain amount of time and sell it off to the distributors, and then it's done. But with digital sets, those should theoretically be available on Arena forever. So they would have to have a licensing agreement that allowed them to print Spider-Man, well, digitally print Spider-Man stuff for perpetuity, right? And maybe the theory is that was too expensive. Another argument that people are making is Sony actually owns the rights to Spider-Man in video games and other things, and that Marvel only owns the rights for Spider-Man's under certain conditions. So that might be what's causing it. Now, it might also be that they don't want a competition, and by they I mean Marvel, doesn't want competition for Marvel Snap, which is a digital game that people could play instead of Arena. So when you boil it down, it's most likely actually going to be something along the lines of the Marvel Snap thing. You can rule out the idea of Sony having anything to do with them not being able to license it, because when Wizards made the announcement about through the omenpaths, they said that none of the Marvel sets will be coming to Arena. So it's not just Spider-Man, but every Marvel set that gets made will not be coming to Arena. So it's either going to fall into a licensing agreement with Marvel where they could not get them to sell it to them cheap enough where they could afford to keep doing it in perpetuity, or it's totally, they don't want competition with Marvel Snap. And that is definitely a big departure from Final Fantasy, for example, where we're allowed to get Final Fantasy Magic cards digitally and in paper. And if you didn't know, there's actually a Final Fantasy card game that's already in existence, that's been in existence for years and is still being printed. That game is not done. It hasn't ended. They're still making it. And yet Wizards was able to get the license to include Final Fantasy on Magic cards. So obviously with different properties, this works in different ways. Now through the omenpaths causes some real confusion problems for the basic, like they said they wanted to make sure that they had mechanical parity between standard formats digitally and physically. But obviously this is going to cause a bunch of confusion, where for the Spider-Man set, you're going to need to know the Spider-Man versions in paper, and digitally you're going to need to know the non-Spider-Man versions. And you can imagine somebody who had no idea that there was a Spider-Man set because they only played digitally, and then they come in and like, I need Gary the rhinoceros knight. And they're like, no, sorry, bro. That's the Green Goblin. Wait, sorry, what? Yeah, that guy who rides a rhinoceros, it's actually the Green Goblin? I don't understand. I also need alchemical flasks of destruction. Oh no, you need them pumpkin bombs. It's like, wait, what? Yeah, the ones Green Goblin throws. Sorry, I don't know. I need these cards that I'm talking about. I played with them online. They don't exist physically. Sorry, what? Yeah, and they only the versions of them that do exist are Spider-Man. It's a very baffling scenario to find ourselves in, and I imagine that as time progresses and more Universe Beyond stuff comes out, that it's only going to get more convoluted. So, a strange situation, but hey, the silver lining is we might actually get to see some interesting world building, and we'll get more universe within stuff on Arena at the very least. So, next item on the list is to talk about, let's talk about Arena some more. Arena Direct is going up in price. And so, if you didn't know what Arena Direct is, it's where Wizards of the Coast runs these tournaments where you can play in them, and if you win the entire thing, if you clean sweep and go undefeated, then you can win an actual physical booster box of cards. So it's the only way to turn your digital goods into physical goods. And as a concept, I actually like it. I think it's cool because MTGO, which is not Arena, it's the precursor to it, had something where you could build entire Magic sets and then you could redeem them. So Wizards would remove one full digital set from your account and they would send you a physical set. So you could play digitally, but you could also turn the money you would put into digital dollars into physical cards, right? So this Arena Direct is something that allows for the same kind of thing. Now, it's going up in price. It used to be 5,000 gems to play in an event. They're increasing the price by 20% for events, so it's going up to 6,000 gems. And they are increasing what you can win as well in terms of they're adding some booster packs along the way. So they've made the rewards for placing higher a little bit better, but they're making it 20% more expensive, except in the case of Universes Beyond, where it's actually going to be 60% more expensive. So instead of 5,000 gems, you're going to need 8,000 gems. They have raised the roof on that one. And obviously, you know, when it comes to Universe Beyond stuff, because they're paying the licensing fees, they are going to obviously jack the prices on that. And that's not the only price jacking we're going to talk about. But since we're on the note of Arena Direct, just want to let you guys know that Wizards put out this this brag about improvement that really doesn't make them look very good. So you may have heard in previous news videos, I talked about Arena Direct winners not actually getting their rewards. So you want a booster box and it just never shows up. There are other problems with it, like taxes, tariffs, all kinds of things that add additional costs onto it. So in some countries, if you win a booster box and you get it sent to you, you could end up having to pay 70% or more of the cost of that box to pick it up. It gets to the point where you didn't really win the box, you just get to buy the box at a slight discount, which is rough. But what's even more rough is just not getting your box at all, which happened to a surprising amount of people. Wizards of the Coast updated us and said, hey, we know there's been a problem where basically 1 out of every 10 people who were supposed to get a box didn't get their box. But we're happy to announce that we've been working on it, we've improved things, and now it's only 1 out of every 20 people. So it's only 5%. 1 out of every 20 people just doesn't get their box. There are still people contacting me, sending me messages and emails saying, bro, it's been 6 months since I won Arena Direct. They haven't sent me stuff. Other people are saying they won't even acknowledge that I won, bro. They won't even talk to me. They keep saying you didn't win nothing and closing the ticket on me when they contact customer service. So it is an absolute disaster over there in that regard. I'm sorry, but 1 out of 20 people who paid into the event, got all the way through it, ran the gauntlet, won the actual whole thing, now run the gauntlet of, oh, sorry, there's also a 5% chance of you not getting anything. Sorry, what? Hey, you shouldn't be that unhappy. It used to be twice as bad. What? We're going to punch you in the kidney, bro. But before, we would have punched you in both kidneys. Oh, wow, thanks, Wizards. That's awesome. You're so generous. And speaking of Wizards' generosity, let's talk about the new Chaos Secret Lair. A bunch of people have been messaging me about this nonsense too. So, the Chaos Vault, right? This is Wizards of the Coast dumping ground for junk bag secret lairs that weren't good enough to go into a super drop. We're just seeing stuff they had made over the last couple years, and they're just like, okay, man, we got to try and get our money out of this. Let's just dump it. So we've seen secret lairs being sold as cheaply as $15, right? With the, what was it, the food token secret lair, where they're just like, please, just buy this stuff. It's a clearinghouse. But Wizards' greedy nature has overtaken them once again, and they're trying a new skis where they're like, what if we put out a secret lair and just put it at the regular price for the Chaos, but just for the non-foil? So we'll put the regular version out as $30 for 4 cards. And here's what we'll do with the foil version. No. It won't be 10 extra dollars. We won't go 30 regular, 40 foil. How about we go 30 regular, 60 for the foil, for 4 foils, 3 of which are complete garbage, by the way. This is the secret lair that I showed you guys previously with Essica's Chariot, and it's got Realms Uncharted. Now that is the card. That is a card that's never seen a reprint. It's from the original Eldrazi block, and it is, the foil version has skyrocketed in price. So Wizards looked at that and went, look, this is a secret lair we're looking to dump, and we didn't have the confidence to put it in a super drop, but let's still see if people are dumb enough to pay double the price for it, just chasing the secondary market value of this one card. And bear in mind, my friends, Wizards of the Coast knows about the value of this card, which means it's pretty much guaranteed to get printed in another set. Do not fall for this. They've done this a bunch of times. I call it the reprint equity double dip, where they turn around and go, hey, we're going to print this card in a secret lair, get people to chase it because of its high secondary market value, and then we'll reprint it in a set, a regular set that you can get as a special bonus card, and then the price of it will tank into the ground. We've watched them do it with cards like Concordant Crossroads, where they go, get the secret lair, this card's super hard to get and super valuable. Oops, tee-hee, we reprinted it, right? Because they want that reprint equity, and they're double dipping. It's called the reprint equity double dip because it puts you in the red. Ultimately, this is a massive scam as far as I'm concerned. It's absolutely absurd to me that this is, hey, this one card has a high secondary market value, so you should have to pay way more to buy this secret lair. There is no justification for it other than Wizards wants to see if they can get away with it. It's an experiment, and if enough people buy it, this will start to become more normalized, and Wizards will put out more products this way. So bear that in mind. This is one of the biggest skeezes that I have seen with Magic Arena. So that wraps up all the news that we have to discuss today. Thanks for coming by and hearing what I have to say. Big shout out to my patrons. You guys rule. And I will see you all in the next video. Or if you want to come hang out tonight, I'll be live over on my live stream channel, and I'd be glad to see you swing by.